The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those expressing them and do not necessarily reflect the OSIP Foundation Incorporated or any other group or individual. This podcast may contain dialogue or subject material that could be considered for mature audiences only. All aspects of how you play the game and the OSIP Foundation Incorporated are protected by copyright and other state and federal intellectual property laws. Unauthorized use without the express written consent of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated is strictly prohibited. If you're interested in sponsoring How You Play the Game, please email us at podcast@osipfoundation.org. Your sponsorship may be tax deductible. Well, fire up the barbecue and schedule that colonoscopy. It's time for How You Play the Game, the official podcast of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated. Yours truly, Jack Furlong, as we talk to you about what's going on as far as the world of sportsmanship is concerned. This is the first episode of the month of February. The year is 2025. As always, check us out online at osipfoundation.org. You can contact the show with the email address podcast@osipfoundation.org, on the socials at facebook.com/osipfoundation, X and Instagram at osipfoundation, hashtag How You Play the Game. Today is the day that we at OSIP, or at least me at OSIP, considers Christmas, because we get to have our annual chat with a very, very special young man. Some of his accolades include being named the third most attractive man on the East Coast by Field and Stream magazine, which, again, is just more about an endorsement for whenever he retires. I'm hoping that Field and Stream calls him. He's number 98 on his sleeve and number 1 in our hearts, the one and only Mr. Chris Conroy. Christopher, how are you, buddy?
Jack, I am great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm just getting jealous because I feel like you're going to get the Field and Stream endorsement and I'm not.
Well, I mean, clearly you're laying foundation for a taste of that, should that come to fruition.
It's very possible. It's very possible.
Just slightly, transparently obvious, but, that's...
I probably should spend more time in both fields and streams before I can really...
You and I both. I mean, I spend plenty of time in the field stream, not necessarily as much. Can't admit to being much of an outdoorsman aside from when I have to work a game out there. But
right, exactly. I mean, the streams are more like if the drainage system doesn't work, in a rain delay, and you're sitting in a pile of it behind third base, like what? You're looking over at the field, the grounds crew, like you have any diamond dust in there? Or
the old minor league ballparks back in the day.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Where it's almost like you're probably expected to work just as hard as every employee to get the field looking okay, right?
100%.
Yeah. I totally get it. So let's start off with the one question that has been on everyone's mind for an entire year. I think in our last episode, you mentioned you had not seen Office Space. Did you get around to seeing that?
I did not.
Okay.
I'm ashamed to say I did not.
All right. So
sorry.
It's okay, but
immediately now I'm gonna make note, and it will be my homework assignment for next year. I promise.
Well, I feel like you have X number of plane rides where
I have opportunities.
Exactly. I have
ample opportunities.
I think we just found the name of the podcast today. It's just I have opportunities. So I can only imagine if that's going to be the title of your next book too. Yeah. So
next, and by next you mean the first,
right? Exactly. And I'm sure the subtitle
never going to get to print.
Exactly. The subtitle will say something like, "This is a political memoir," and every one of my subtitles starts with a bold-faced lie. So anyway, along those same lines, I'm going to give you this question now, and then we'll come back to it at the end of the episode. Instead of doing like a bunch of the fun quizzes and stuff, I want you at the end of the episode to give us your top 5 comedies of all time based upon all the stuff that we have discussed. You think you can do that?
I can probably, my go-to movies for quotes, or
either one, however you want to describe it. And I'll even give
my
you
discretion.
I'll give you leeway on that, and I'll even give you up to 3 honorable mentions if you need them.
Okay.
Right.
Because I'll chew on that as we talk. But
okay. So if you get really distracted over some of these questions, just
when you're just rambling on and on at some point, and if I just have that glossed over look in my eyes, I'm thinking of my top 5, perhaps 8 comedies.
It's basically the exact same look that you give as someone runs out for another mound visit.
Okay.
Where you're just like, okay, guys, it's the first inning and you're using one now. Okay.
Okay. All right.
I got to write this down too. What the hell? What am I, a triathlete here?
I have to make note of this.
Come on. Yeah.
Top 1. Here we go.
Yeah. You're waving up to the press box like, didn't think you'd hear from me today.
Here we are.
All right. So anyway, how's everything? How's life?
My life is good. I have no complaints. I'm significantly healthier than I was a year ago at this time.
Right.
I'm very thankful for that. My family is good. Family is healthy. You know what? I mean, as we discussed before we came on, things could always be worse.
That's
somewhere. So I try to maintain a positive outlook. And just, all things considered, I'm feeling fortunate and feeling good.
That's fantastic to hear. Yep. And I'm glad to hear that the family's good. And I'm sure you're loving spending all this time with them that you have now. And
I am,
I can only imagine that it's, there's a small part where, they're probably sick of you, but at the same time, not sick of you,
I think they're always sick of me.
That's fair.
Not my wife, my kids. I have I have twin girls. They're 15. So
by nature, they're sick of you.
So you can just, extrapolate out on your own, how that probably goes on a good day.
Yeah. I feel like even good the
day,
fans,
in quotes.
the fans in the stands who even hate umpires are probably looking at that and going, "Oh yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, we can't argue with that."
Immediately just felt everything I was laying out.
They're probably calling the usher over and say, "Please send a 6-pack down to the umpire room for after the game." Because I've just found out he has teenagers, and
again, like I said, I always come back to it could always be worse.
Yeah,
deep down, I have great kids. They don't, no problems in school, really no problems out of school. They just kind of save up all their, frustrations and everything to unleash it on mom and dad when they get home. And then, all right, if somebody's going to take that, I'd rather it be my wife and I. So
yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And I'm sure that there are times too in the middle of the season where you're just like, man, I could really go for a lashing from my daughters right now.
Well, usually that comes from my wife when she calls to just be like, do you know what your kids did today? It's like, I get multiple calls like that over the course of a day, and it's, but hey, it's all good.
I'm sure that the response is, not now, honey, I'm writing up an ejection report. Can you give me 20 minutes?
I just had this bench clearing brawl you're probably going to be able to watch on SportsCenter in about 15 minutes.
Right.
So I got to write it up and let the office know. So
yeah, I promise you I'll get back to you. Okay. Let's clear communication right here. I will circle back with you. Okay.
20 years together, I know how to find you.
Yeah. We have the technology. Okay. So your back is feeling good right now?
That's fantastic. I feel good. I mean, everyone's like 100%. And I'm like, what is 100% anymore? It's like, as you age, you find what the new 100% is, and figure out how to best navigate your way there. And that's kind of where I'm close to feeling. Like last year was finally making it back on the field. I actually didn't get on the field till first week of May.
Right.
So, and even then it was like, it was time to go back and I was ready, but, then navigating that year, kind of coming off like a lengthy rehab and trying to sort of adjust to like a new normal for me. Like, all right, how do I now, get my body through this, kind of the demands of the schedule and the travel, being somewhat less than I was prior. So,
right.
It was a grind. I will admit to by the end being on fumes a little bit and was kind of ready to be done.
Right.
And then, like every off season, you have some downtime, you get to heal up a little bit and then start to, work your way back and put yourself back together. And in the process of that, I've started to feel pretty good, like better than I remember being in a long time. So,
right.
I'm hopeful that we just kind of head into this year and it's more kind of business as usual and normal than what, last year and a half has been like.
Oh,
so.
Absolutely. I mean, I can only imagine that, considering, I got to think about calendars now, considering 2023 and then how 2024 went, your body is probably it made sense to be on fumes at the time that you were, it's not like you're going through, the normal 162 grind, even with the time off that you get, you're probably just like, your body's just saying, hey, congrats on getting back here, go home,
Right.
Yeah.
Because everything you've had to undertake to get to that point, like the rehab process is pretty, you don't think of it until you're going through it and obviously go through it for a pretty extensive amount of time like I did, but you don't realize that like that's kind of that it's building you up obviously, but it's just adding to like you're wearing down at some point. It's like,
Right.
okay, I've been in like, okay, I rehabbed for, 13 months and then right out to a season for 6, 7 months of that. And it's like, by the end, it's like, you're just kind of like, all right, I'm kind of toast right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Just let me sit down, please. I just can you give me 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes.
Yes. Yes. But like I said, made it through one piece, and everything's trending in the right direction this off season. So I'm feeling very optimistic about 25. So
That's great to hear. Do you think you're going to be able to swing a golf club again?
that is certainly now that I've thankfully checked the box of like, will I be able to return and do my job again? Which was
Kind of more important.
which was prioritizing,
Slightly.
but I've not touched a club in a while, so my goal at some point is to maybe just get back and start doing some easy swinging and see how it all feels. But obviously we'll be mindful of it, but I do love to play and have obviously been away from it for a while, but
Yeah.
hope to maybe reintroduce it at some point here soon.
It is difficult to get out there right now when there's snow on the course too. I've
It is
already
tough.
looked into this.
It is tough. Although this area, it's funny. I remember some winters. Al Porter and I live right near each other, and we played a round of golf in January. And literally, we were out there in like normal, like summer golf wear. Like
I think I remember that story. Was
Yeah.
Mike Provine with you that day too?
might have been with us. Mike
Yeah.
might have been with us, but either way, we were dressed as if you were out there for a round of golf in July.
Right.
Polo shirt, pair of shorts, life is grand.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
the next day, like there was, a half a foot of snow on the ground and my kids had a snow day, like the next day.
Right,
And I'm like, so it hasn't been a great winter for sneaking in a winter round.
I got out there in the beginning of December, and then I was just like, oh, okay, I guess we're done now.
Yeah, this
So-
one reminds me of like when I grew up in Massachusetts, the kind of winters, like once the snow was on the ground, it just has been there the whole time. It's been cold, and then it keeps adding a little bit, and it's
Yep.
cold and adds a little bit. Like I'm used to, all right, some snow, then the weather warms up, we get some rain, and it kind of gone, and then a couple days, but this just keeps hanging around.
It's confusing as hell for me. Where my house is, I look out the back window, and the sun doesn't hit it. So
Yes.
the snow stays, and then you leave the house and you drive around. And you're like, everything appears almost melted. What
I see everybody else's lawn except mine. Mine is-
exactly? Why am I even paying the HOA at this point?
Exactly.
This doesn't
Same
make
way.
any
That's our
stupid
house is
sense.
situated in same kind of way, where like
Yeah.
the front gets very minimal sun, and it's just like still big pile of snow, and everybody
Right.
else around. I look out, it's just green grass everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. The weather gods hate me right now.
That's it.
All right. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So you were talking about your rehab and whatnot, and I remember talking to you briefly during spring training about it and whatnot. What was it about that rehab process that kept you going? I guess. I mean, I can only imagine you missed the routine of spring training. I can only imagine. I mean, they wanted you out in Arizona to do rehabbing as well. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of that just kind of threw you curveballs left and right. Looking back on it now, from the human side, can you describe what that was for people who are like, oh, geez, I didn't realize that sports officials go through this in the same way.
Yeah. Obviously just the biggest, you kind of had, again, this is like the second time I've had my back operated on. And initially, so I had the procedure done like very early April of 23.
Right.
And, by all accounts goes well. Some immediate signs of success and, alleviating pain and, not having sort of numbness down my leg, things like that. But
Right.
the biggest grind and battle for me was regaining like functional strength on my left side, which it just took forever.
Yeah.
And like when I mean forever, I mean forever.
Yeah.
Like, just being at it every day with something, like whether it was actually at the physical therapist 2 days a week, 3 days a week, and then, the days I'm not actually at PT, I've got my, my home program to do in between. So it's not like just, okay, days I don't go to PT, I'm just, chilling footloose and fancy free. It's like,
Right.
all right, every day there's something to be done. And it's just, there were so many frustrations in there with putting in that much work and just seeing such minimal results.
Right.
You feel like there should be like a better correlation between how hard I'm working and how quickly I'm recovering. And those just were completely out of whack with each other.
I get it.
Where it's like I'm, like as the season, like when it initially happened, it's like, I asked the question, well, how long do you think I'm out? And they're like, well, maybe All-Star break, which, would have been like, I don't know, say 3-4 months away,
Right.
So initially I'm like, all right. And then as things are going, it's like, there's no way I'm going to be ready for the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And then at some point you're like, well, maybe towards the end. And then all of a sudden you're like, this season's done,
Yeah.
So then it's kind of like a reset. You're like, all right. So the grind of thinking you're coming back this year is off your plate.
Right.
Right. So that's off. That, I guess that stress or that thought is like gone. So that ship has sailed. I'm not making it back for 23. So then you think like, all right, I got all winter, right? I've got all this time and I'm going to keep at it. And then, but as that unfolded and it's like November, December, January, you're like, this isn't like really happening for me.
Right.
Like, am I improving? Sure. But am I improving to the level where I'm basically going to be able to move around and do my job and not essentially be just a sitting duck out there and possibly risk some type of further injury? There were definitely moments as we sort of, January of 24, where I'm starting, or in my mind is beginning to creep like, this may never happen.
Right.
I don't know if I, ever will recover enough to get back on the field. I'm like, I don't know. And it's, because they tell you like, well, you kind of have about a year post-surgery to kind of regain what you can regain. And once you hit that mark, it's kind of, you kind of are where you are,
Right.
And so they like this facility in Arizona in the Scottsdale area. Really fantastic rehab place that they kind of send a lot of our guys through. So they asked me if I was willing, this is now like approaching, it's late February now. Initially it was like, I go to Florida for spring.
Right.
Initially it was like, all right, we're going to go to Florida like normal, but we're going to maybe find a place for you down there and kind of work in, rehab and maybe some backfield work just to, get your sea legs going a little bit. And then they were like, hey, look, we already have this relationship with the place in Arizona. I know it's like a last minute kind of total like upending the apple cart on you, but like, would you be willing to go out there? And I'm like, I'll do anything.
Yeah.
Like I will do whatever anybody thinks is best for me to go back and do my job. I'm all in.
Yeah.
So I head to Arizona like early March, and really I was there the whole month of March and about the first week of April. And it was, PT out there, and then also like coordinating with the Diamondbacks were great about letting me sort of jump on the backfields with their minor leaguers. And I just began kind of basically, working, sort of trying to take the improvements I was making in PT and then seeing how it all translated out on the field. So, started with, jump into some bullpen sessions, and then maybe like, all right, we're doing live BP. You want to jump back there and call? Sure. Then sim games. And then eventually it becomes the actual minor league team, the minor league umpires show up.
Yep.
And the minor league games are going on, and I'm jumping on there. And finally, like at about somewhere about mid-March, I was on a field working, and just all of a sudden one day I went to like sort of jog somewhere, and it just magically I was like, holy cow, like I feel like I have my left leg finally
that's great.
underneath me a little bit. Like it's not, not where I need it, but like I'm feeling like finally for the first time, and I can't remember when, it was like, oh my God, maybe this is actually going to happen.
Yeah.
I remember like it was such a good feeling. I remember like, worked the rest of that game, jumped in the car, called my wife at home, explaining it. I was practically in tears.
That's great.
It was just such a like an emotional thing that like I really was genuinely thinking like this might not happen. And I'm 49 years old, and one moment you think, oh yeah, I got this 10, 12 years left to go and support my family. And then boom, you're thinking, I got to maybe think of something else.
Yeah.
And so, again, thankfully, it all just started to come together a little bit from there, and then progressed into a couple week rehab stint, basically up in Lehigh Valley, and then back to my crew in early May, back on the field in the big leagues.
Yes,
So
yeah.
but probably probably the biggest motivator all along is just like, it was mostly just thinking of my family and who I support. It was
Right.
like, it wasn't really selfishly like, I want to get back to be an umpire. It's like, this is how I support my family.
Right.
And I like supporting them with this job that I do.
Right. Yeah.
I've invested a lot of years of my life to get here, and I made it. And it would just really piss me off if it got taken away from me.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Something like this. So, just mostly thinking of them as a motivator to just keep at it. And, like those days where you just feel like you're beating your head off a wall and there's zero improvement going on. And then they're like, well, no, the next day it's like, you see that wall, go beat your head off it, because somewhere along the way you're going to break through. And, like finally, thank goodness it did. But it was it was a long grind.
You heard it here first, folks. Chris Conroy loves his family. Story at 11. Wow. We are breaking some news.
Well, even if my daughters don't love me back all the time, like we said, they're 15.
Yeah,
I love them.
Yeah. Whether you like
I say
it or
to them
not,
sometimes,
girl.
I said, look, I said, I'm contractually obligated to love you all the time as your father, but I don't like you very much right now. Like here and there, I may say,
Talk to my attorney. All right. Yeah. Who may or may not be this wall over here.
That's right.
Where my head is banging. Oh, I can only hope it's a very thin drywall. Okay.
Yes.
Because if it is concrete.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. I remember the night when you got back out on the field. I think you were at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, we did. Yep.
And I'm pulling into the bar to do trivia.
Yep.
And I hear Susan Waldman doing the pregame, and she goes over the umpire lineup, and I realize, oh yeah, it's your crew, and I'm listening to hear who's on the crew, because Lord knows it's rotating at this point.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And then and she says, and at third base, the crew chief Chris Conroy, and I was like, I stopped the car. I was like, what?
Wait a minute, he's back out there.
Wait. Is he going to send me a fax or something? No, I don't crash the car here. I can only see the cops showing up. Is this drunk driving? No, my friend got back from rehab. This is great. He didn't even start drinking yet.
For 14 months.
Right. So, in that case, Mr. Furlong, please just go ahead.
Please go ahead. Right ahead.
Yeah. We'll meet you at the bar at that
That's
point.
right.
Okay? Yeah.
We'll give you an escort.
Exactly. Yeah. The 3 feet that you need at this point. What can you describe that moment of walking back out on the field? And not to mention you're on, the cathedral of baseball at that point too. But what is that like to just get out there and say, oh my God, I'm back?
Yeah, that was a that nothing will ever top like walking on the field for the very first time in the big leagues way back. That feeling that night in New York was a pretty close second.
Yeah.
Just a lot of gratitude. We're all guilty of this, no matter what you do for a living. You always get to a point where maybe you got it on autopilot a little bit, and maybe you're taking some things for granted and assuming too much, and then something like that happens to you where you learn pretty fast that you're only in control of so much,
Right.
And that like it could always be gone, and like you never know. You're one fastball to the mask, one wrong turn of the knee, one, where you're thinking, oh yeah, I've got this great career and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z over the next decade. And then all of a sudden, like, it's just over with.
Yeah.
So to be able to sort of come back from feeling that way to then going, back onto the field, it was, it was a very satisfying, joyful experience.
Yeah.
I try to be a guy that keeps things in relative perspective and never take that job for granted, because I know it's a hard job to even get. But I was especially I was especially thankful and grateful that night.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like you alluded to it also when you were just talking about the idea of, yes, I'd like to provide for my family, but you said there's that I want to umpire as well. I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like that's just part of humanity in that
Right.
you want to do the job that you have, and
Sure.
and especially in sports where it's the old, they have to rip the uniform off your back kind of a thing.
Totally.
It's the same thing, I'm sure, in umpiring, where it's, I want to go out on my terms. I want to be the one to determine when I'm done.
And it rarely happens. I mean, it's very rare that it happens. I mean, over the course of my career, I can think of only a small number of instances where somebody actually kind of, went out, like, I guess riding off into the sunset, if you will.
Yeah.
Versus, most guys just, the number of years we're at this, the body just kind of betrays you at some point, and eventually you're just unable to go out and do it.
Right.
So yeah, I sort of put it like this: to be able to, I don't think everybody can say this, so that's why I try to remain extra positive and feel fortunate, like to be able to provide a great life for the people you love while doing the thing you love to do is, I think, rare.
Yes.
I think not, and again, it's out there. Obviously, like I'm proof of that right now, as I just declared, and I know other walks of life, same thing. But by and large, I mean, how many times do you talk to somebody or meet somebody, and honestly, they're working a job because they have to provide for their family, and if you gave them their choice, it would be the last thing they did. But it's like, some point, there's people that rely on me, and I need to provide for them, and you got to do what you got to do. But for me to be able to check both those boxes and say I can take care of the people that matter most in my life while doing the job that I love to do the most, that that every day I wake up and get to go do it. And I've told people it's like a winning lotto ticket in my hand. Like, I get to go walk into a big league ballpark tonight. Like, who wouldn't trade places with me?
Yeah.
So to check both those boxes I feel pretty unique and pretty special.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think I don't know why this comes to mind. I feel like Jimmy Reynolds is one of those guys who did get to walk off the way that he did.
Yeah.
Saying like, I got a family and I kind of had this goal, and I'm sure he probably could have gone on for
sure
X more years, but he was one where I'm like, no, as a fan of umpires, you miss him, but at the same time, when you hear like, he made that decision to spend time with the family and this, that, the other, and he's healthy and all. And you're like, more power to you, man. Just
I mean, it's rare you see guys retire who are A, healthy, and B, still at the top of their game as far as like the skill set to do the job out there. I mean, that combination is, I mean, almost non-existent. Like, we're all either kind of just trying to hold ourselves together across the finish line, or maybe you're working where obviously you're not what you maybe used to be, but perhaps a lot of times you're getting, at that point, maybe you're like, technical skills are on the decline, as with every job like that where you get a little older, but your people skills are sharp, and you have the respect of people on the field from being there for years, and you can certainly navigate your way through. There's different, I think there's different ways they look at different umpires depending on where you are in your career.
Right.
But to see a guy walk and say, no, I've prepped for this moment. I've had like this age or this time in my life in my sights since I started, and then to be able to go do it when healthy and very, very good still on the field is rare.
Yeah. And it's not like he's gone. I mean, you think about the job as the supervisor and what he's still able to do, because on the flip side of that, like you said, you still need to provide for the people you love, and there are still jobs available in that community where you are, so loved. So it's just the modality might change, but that's the benefits that come with that are great.
Sure. And he was our crew supervisor last year, and he was great. Like, he was a great, valuable resource, certainly for me as like a very, very, very young crew chief. That pretty much like everything that happens to me is like a first time exposure.
Right.
so I'm navigating my own way as far as like, obviously you got to handle it.
Right.
But then, afterwards it's like, did I do that,
correctly? Yeah.
Did I really do that right? Or Next time, would I do it differently? So, he was a huge resource to me to talk about that kind of stuff as I
Yeah.
was navigating my way through all that also. So,
And yeah, and I, I've never met Jimmy, but I know how much of a great guy he is. I think
Yep.
about what he's still doing with Umps Care and all that
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
So it's
Yep.
all, I feel like that's just an incredible resource, and
Totally.
to have. And I remember, I was talking with Field and Culberth about it, and he goes, I talk with Jimmy just about every day, and I pretty much mock him every single day that I do that. But I talk to him every single day. So. That sounds about right.
Yes.
I'm sure,
Yep.
I'm sure he, like most of us, just are ready for that kind of abuse.
Oh,
So,
right.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. We all sign up for that a little bit in this
exactly.
job.
Yeah.
We're,
So,
yeah. Nothing's ever too soon or off limits, like amongst them.
no, that's the title of my book. Okay,
You gotta have thick skin.
exactly. Believe me, I know. With the way that you started this past season, do you change your mindset a little bit? Like, obviously, going through the motions of your average season, you go down for spring training, you work a full season and whatnot is one thing, and then because you're coming off of an injury and you maybe your body's got to kind of grind through it a little bit. Do you set new goals? Do you are you apprehensive at all that one false move could you send you back to the sidelines, or what is it that is? Do you have to make adjustments as a result of that in that time?
I think there were certainly adjustments that I had to make. I wouldn't necessarily say on the field. But like during the day was a bigger adjustment. Like there's kind of a daily like maintenance program in order to kind of just prep my body to get it to the point where I can go and get on the field and not have to think about it. That was probably the biggest adjustment, because prior to that, it's like, there were days it was like, if I don't, like skip the gym today, or maybe like in the room before the game, like, not give myself a very good like warm up session
Right.
to hit the field. I could go hit the field and then still feel like I wasn't getting around any worse than if I had done all those things. But there was it wasn't long before I figured out I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
In my, that it was like, okay, I need, like, it means, it sounds funny, like whoever's listening, like it means, you cut the pregame card game short another, like maybe 15, 20 minutes earlier than normal, because I need that additional time to get ready. Or, I need to always carve out the time and make it a priority to get in the gym during the day to just kind of keep myself moving. There were early on, there were a couple of days I was a little lax on that, and I definitely felt it when I was on the field. So like just knowing like, all right, I got to just rewire my brain that like this is my new normal.
Yeah.
Like, there's no just I'll be all right today and I don't have to do it. It's just it's mandatory. It is what it is, and that was probably one of the more noticeable adjustments that I needed to make, is that all that stuff had to be absolute like top priority.
Yeah.
There was no like kind of give on that whatsoever.
I mean, could it be as simple as just saying, I now know, like, I normally would get to the ballpark X amount of time before first pitch. Now it's just increase that so that I know I'm there, and that kind of a thing?
I wouldn't say it's an earlier arrival. I probably would say, as I sort of tongue in cheek, but it's true. Like most crews will get there, between 90 minutes and 2 hours before first pitch. And usually, most crews I've ever been on, they just start playing spades and deal up some cards. And it's a way to kind of like stay a little bit loose and whatnot. But it wasn't necessarily arriving, like if pre-injury, a normal arrival time was 90 minutes. It didn't become like 2 or 2.5 hours for me. It just became, like I said, more like, usually in the past, it's like, all right, about 30 minutes before we walk on the field is when you kind of cut the game off and start dialing in and getting yourself warm. Well, maybe like, especially on like a plate day for me, that had to be maybe more like 45 minutes.
Okay.
Like that kind of adjustment. So again, it was just, it's just kind of something that over time I realized I couldn't, I wasn't setting myself up for success if I wasn't giving myself that time.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. So you get through the season. You work the one round in replay. Did you
Correct.
feel like a certain amount of like relief, like you were mentioning like your body was adjusting and whatnot. Like, did that feel like a good accomplishment? Because I know there are plenty of umpires who feel like, if I don't get a playoff assignment or something like that, it's a
On the
problem.
field.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And in your situation, was that was that something where you're like, I can live with this, I'm happy with this, or anything like that, or what? I mean,
Yeah, I feel like leading up to, I felt like I had a good year on the field.
right?
Given, I missed the previous year, and, I think to come back, a month into the season after having been out so long, I feel like, could we all always be better? Of course. But
yeah.
I feel like given all the different circumstances, I felt like I produced a good year on the field. Same time, I'd be lying if I said I didn't start to have the mindset coming down the stretch when postseason assignments are coming out, where in my mind it was like, you know what, it might be the best thing for me to just get off the field.
Yeah.
At the last day of the regular season.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I completely understand that.
And again, if they had called me and said, "Hey, you're going to work the you're going to work the division series," of course I would have been
right.
Like, all right, well, I'm just figure out a way to get through a little longer.
Yep.
But when they called and was like, you're going to work replay for divisional, I was kind of like, you know what, like that feels like it's the right call.
Yeah.
And again, there's always years where you think, well, you got something or didn't get something, and you're like, maybe, not totally agreeing with their decision, but at the end of the day, you got to release that because it's not your call.
Right.
But I felt like that was kind of like a best of both worlds, where I'm still involved, admittedly, making a little extra money, which is not an awful thing.
No, not at all.
But getting, staying involved while, sort of jump starting the rest and recovery process for my body.
Yep.
I think overall, I think actually it's set me up well to get to the point now this offseason where I feel like I am going to be ready to go, kind of just like, all right, let's go, in 25, like not a like, wow, how do we massage Conroy through the season?
Right. Yeah.
Like, all right. Like we need him where we need him, right. Like that's what I want.
We all want
that. I don't want special circumstances. I don't want any of that. I would never want any of that. But I'm thankful that that's like not even under consideration.
Yeah.
I think that played a good part. Like, just kind of like, all right, let's get you off your feet, get you off the field. You've been at this, it's been a long year for you. It's been a long 2 years for you.
Yeah.
Let's just, get you off the field, get you reset. We still value you, in the replay room, because obviously those are impactful decisions.
Absolutely.
But I think it was a good reset for my body, basically. Yeah.
It sounds like a very compassionate decision, especially because both you and the league kind of said, like, came to the same end point, even no matter how you got there. And I feel like people can certainly empathize with that. I know I've had plenty of years, I'm going into year 19 of doing it, where it's just now where I'm like, you know what, I know that work, and I'm not like you. I might work the plate every day for a while.
Yeah.
Where if you start mid-March, by the time you get to the beginning of June, you're just like, I'm done. I've worked out of 3 months, I've worked 90% plates, and I don't.
That stacks up. I mean, that's
exactly.
That is not I mean, the bill comes due at some point.
Right. Very true.
It's
Wells Fargo just called. Okay.
My one daughter plays like travel softball, and we go to these weekend tournaments, and there's always just one person out there.
Yeah.
And these are the ones that they, like the first game starts at sun up, right. and it goes like all day, and these guys are just working one man,
right?
So they're always working the plate.
Yep.
And at the same time trying to judge a super close steal play from however many feet away,
right?
And then somebody wants to pop off about the call, and I'm just like, that sends me through the roof.
I can only imagine.
I can't even stand it. I'm like, get off this guy. I mean, one guy. Be grateful anybody's out here. We can have a game.
Right.
You know,
you are speaking such truth with that, and I guess that kind of it leads me to a new question: is that how do you get through that? I mean, do you obviously have to bite your tongue? I mean,
Yes.
we know the rules and everything. We have them in our policy statement. You guys, I'm sure, have plenty of protocols to dictate this and whatnot. But inside, you must be like
churning hard.
yeah.
And I will freely admit there's been maybe one or two times where I've not been able to be quiet.
Because you're human. How dare you?
Because,
you know?
And again, it's not, and I don't mean that as like, I don't direct any comments at umpires.
Right. No, it's towards the fans who are popping off.
And my daughter was from day one. It's like, you're not gonna talk to umpires that way.
Right.
You know, at all. Like it's not tolerated in this house.
Yeah.
Period. I don't care how much you may not like a call. Like it just doesn't matter because I promise you at some point you'll probably gotten one you didn't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, even though in the moment you think the one that happened that you didn't deserve is like the only thing that matters because we never have perspective on stuff like that.
Of course.
But I just was like, look, be grateful they're there, you know, thank them. It's just, look, it's part of the deal.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, I never ever say anything to officials. In fact, I don't even go talk. I don't really even go talk to them. I don't like to, oh, hey, I'm Chris.
You know, yeah.
Whatever, you know, like this, but, I mean, certainly the parents of the team that my daughter plays for like know what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I don't know that I feel like I've not talked to them specifically about this, but sometimes I think maybe they take a few cues from me when they want to, you know, they want to have that like moment. Yeah. And I'm just like,
yep.
Like, all right. I mean, this is youth travel softball. Like, get over it. First of all, okay. Like these kids are here because they should be here because they love it and they want to have fun, not because you're looking to cultivate your future free ride to a Division I school.
Right.
Okay. But like, and I have had a couple times where I popped off to like a coach that in that situation I described, like one person's working the game.
Right.
Just an absolute dirty steal play. And they're taking it from, you know, they got to like 2 steps from behind the catcher and make
call it a second, right? Yeah.
You know, and I'm amazed at how often they're right because I'm watching. I'm like, that's a great call. Yeah. That's a great call if you're 5 feet away. Never mind 75.
We sacrifice distance for angle. What would you expect? You know?
Yeah, and then they want to come out and put on a scene. And a couple of times I've been like, man, get out of here. This isn't about you. Yeah. Like it's, you know, this guy's out here on his own. Like get off the field. Nobody came to see you. Like do this whole like I'm the head coach. I'm going to complain thing.
Yep.
I got no time for that.
It's almost like you agree with what our organization preaches. What are the odds? When did this happen? You know.
How about that? I weave that in, you know.
That's so smart. I mean, I'm sure you're just so thankful that the book I wrote is making a great coaster at your house too at the same time. You know? So,
well, you know what, Jack? I'll say this: of the stack of books that's on my nightstand to read, it's one of them.
Good. That is good. There's a joke in there, like I've never been so close to your bed or something like that. I don't know what it is, but it's just, I'll just move on.
It's absolutely in there. You have an impressive autograph, by the way.
Oh man,
your autograph is is solid, by the way.
There's the sequel to the book that I'm writing.
J is
exactly.
That's a good letter to have for an autograph, though.
One of my music colleagues looked at it and says, "It looks like you're writing jazz when you do that. Is that what you're doing? Since that's what you play all the time?" And I was like, "No, I'm writing my name. That's what an autograph is." And he was just like, "Oh darn!" And he like walked away like he was disappointed. And I was just like, you know, just be happy I have decent penmanship. You know, that was hard enough. Okay,
yeah, that was enough of a battle.
I look at my parents. Like my mother's penmanship is horrendous, and my father's is eloquent. And I'm like, well, at least I know how to hold it. You know,
it's like the old English.
I learned calligraphy in 5th grade. I feel like that should go on my LinkedIn page. Okay,
it's impressive. You see like snippets of like the guys that in big league dugouts that do the big lineup party calligraphy. It's kind of cool looking.
I look at that and I'm just like, wow, they got a lot of time on their hands, but that's pretty damn good.
Totally.
You know? And then I see like the Yankees, they have theirs printed, and it was like, oh, you guys are just phoning that in. Come on, you know? Come on, write it out. Come on, yeah. But anyway, You mentioned in a prior episode about the realization of your family dynamic, because I feel like it was, you were kind of realizing like, geez, I'm on the road all this time. I don't get a lot of time to have the family unit together.
Yeah.
And then you spend the time in the rehab and whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm sure you felt, incredibly lucky to have that as well. I mean, did this whole thing cause even a new appreciation for it, or is there still that element also of just like, yeah, I do need to get away from my daughters a little bit because they're going to kill me, but can you talk about that from the human side as well? Because I'm sure that when you're rehabbing, first of all, as you discussed, the head going against the wall with the frustration is probably taking over a large portion of that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you're in the unique situation of, I don't get to spend that much time with my family compared to the average person.
Yep.
I'm actually getting that a little bit now.
Right.
What was that like going through that and then realizing it as you were going through this past season as well?
Yep. Yeah, that definitely, I will say having the time with them definitely sort of flushed the frustration much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I was able to participate in so much more with them at a time of the year when I'm used to not really being around.
Right.
So again, going back to like trying to be the optimist, that was sort of, once I realized that, that I was likely, I was obviously going to be down for a little while, and then ultimately turned into the entire year in 23. I tried to make a quick pivot to like, okay, the circumstances under which I'm here are not ideal. However, being able to be here is, because, excuse me, because we are kind of, during the season, we are kind of transient figures in in the life of our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So to know that, yeah, I can, I got one that's heavy into, softball, runs cross country, track. I got another one that's like dancing and musicals and things like that. So it was like, I could go to all the recitals. I could go to all the performances. I could go to all the weekend softball stuff. I could go to the school games during it was just like, I can go to all this.
Yeah.
And really that, that was not that there weren't, moments of like some extended, like just feeling down and unsure and frustrated, but getting the time with them really allowed me to not stay there for very long.
That's good.
And that was really the big thing for me. Like it was an eye opener that as hard as it is, like obviously the rehab process is like a physical thing.
Yeah.
You're trying to mend your body and get it back. But I having now gone through it the way I did, it is every bit as much of a mental grind than it is the physical grind. And yeah, I really, whoever's out there, like under an illusion of like, oh man, wouldn't it be great to be hurt and home? Like, no,
don't do
like,
it. Yeah.
You know what? I went through it. Feel fortunate to have the people I have around me to get me through it, but I don't wish that on anybody. Yeah. I really don't. Like it's just full of, uncertainty and doubt. And you're not doing what you've done your entire adult life.
Yeah.
Your clock is all out of whack. It's just, you're navigating like some new normal while also wondering like, am I ever going to be able to be healthy enough to go back and do what I love to do and sacrifice so much along the way to get to?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, having them and being able to be more of a presence, like a physical presence in their lives instead of the guy on the screen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I will call it a blessing. It really was. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So let's switch to some umpire stuff for a moment. I want to start with something kind of more broad and random, only because I see it a lot on social media and whatnot, and it's the time of year where and knowing what's going on, watching the reaction that people have in situations like we have in football right now, where I hear all this stuff. Oh, the refs are pulling for Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, exactly. And I see all the memes and whatnot. Sure. I'm curious to know, as somebody who is in the fraternity at the level that you are.
Yep.
How do you respond when you see that stuff? Either whether that be like a personal internal reaction, or if someone casually brings it up to you, because they know, like, is there anything that you specifically have to do to kind of not knock them down a peg, but to bring truth to the situation?
Well, first of all, it's confirmation bias is what it is, because this narrative's out there that, let's use obviously football, right? The Chiefs get all the calls.
Right.
If you lay a finger on Pat Mahomes, it's going to be a 15-yard penalty.
Right.
And meanwhile, your quarterback can get his head taken off and they don't throw the flag.
Absolutely.
And any little thing you see that might fit that, you go, oh, there it is again.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, that stuff I read or see out there is like, that goes in one ear and out the other. I'm just like, give me a break.
Yeah.
If I see any headline of like, Chiefs controversial, blah, I'm not opening it. I'm moving on. Don't even pay it any mind. I'm not, it's like clickbait,
I hear you.
I'm not even going there. As far as like person to person, there's always been, because honestly, like, even if you pay half of a bit of attention to baseball, people know like Joe West, people know Angel Hernandez, and you get people that just want to like talk to me and think and take a shot at those guys in the course of a conversation, and I'll go back at them pretty hard in that scenario. I'm gonna say, Angel Hernandez, blah blah blah. I said, let me stop you right there.
Yeah,
I said, in 2012, the year before I was hired full time, I worked with Angel the entire year. I was filling in for Eddie Rapuano. Angel ran the crew. It was me, him, Eddie Hickox, and Mark Carlson. And my girls were 3 years old, 3 turning 4 that year. And I can't say, I will be indebted to Angel forever for how he made me feel that year.
That's fantastic.
Number one, every night, I tell people all this all the time, and you kind of joke about it after a while when you're in the room and you see him kind of doing his thing for like another young umpire.
Right.
But it's true. Like, every night he made me walk on the field feeling like I was 12 feet tall.
Wow.
And that I was, without question, the best umpire on the planet.
Wow.
And confidence is just about everything in this job. At any
of course.
Doesn't matter what level you're working at. I don't care. I don't care if it's on TV or not, or in front of 10 people, 10,000, 50,000. If you're not confident, anybody out there on that field can smell it, and you're a sitting duck.
Yeah.
Angel made me feel like I was 12 feet tall. That I was like Paul Bunyan out there. Could do no wrong. And
which is funny because you're about 10 feet tall now, right? Like, you're a pretty tall guy.
Yeah. Well, as you get older, you start to shrink.
Oh, okay. It's that reverse Benjamin Button thing, right? Yeah.
In 2012, I was, 30, I was 37, 38. Now I'm 50. So,
right. Yeah. Is that how that works? Math is,
But, he treated me like gold, just pumped me up with confidence. He treated my family and my kids like gold, like he's like their Uncle Angel.
Wow.
And like, it's sort of like my wife is the same thing. Like, people will just kind of make these dumb, ignorant, like backhanded comments about Angel, and she'll basically say the same thing to them that I just said to you. I won't tolerate that or listen to it.
Yeah.
Because it's people that are not informed. They're going off of, some articles they read. Again, they're just, they got someone like Angel in the crosshairs, and now they're going to look for every little thing.
Yeah.
That honestly, like most of us go out there and work the same way all the time. But there are 50 articles about him every fourth day and 0 about anybody else. And it's like, they just are hunting for him, you know, and they just don't know the person. Heart the size of Texas, would literally give you the shirt off his back. And, so that's kind of like, like I said, the reading the stuff, I don't pay no mind. But like when somebody wants to say something to me like, oh yeah, like these guys really just, like an umpire or an official, like, wanted so-and-so to win, or like there's some conspiracy in the league office. Like, that is such nonsense. Yeah. I mean, I've been in like thousands of nights I've been in locker rooms, and I'm like, I can tell you that at no time have I ever been part of a conversation where we're like, let's go out here and really affect the outcome of this game somehow, or, I mean, it's ludicrous.
Yeah, it is.
But and that's kind of just how I handle it and try to approach it.
Yeah,
So,
I hear you. No,
yeah.
I feel like it's good to hear that, especially coming from you, because I think, especially on whether you're in the profession or not, even at lower levels, or it's powerful especially with the power of social media these days and all that kind of stuff. So, it's important to hear someone that kind of serves as an authority figure on the subject to say, look, this is how I handle it, and
Yes.
and I feel like that really sets a good tone, a good tenor for how we can handle it moving forward.
It's easier said than done because like the draw to that stuff is like a moth to the flame.
Yeah.
Because as much as we know, like I shouldn't consume this, but we're all like just mildly curious about what it's like. I always say like you got to not live your life in the comment section
Right.
of an article or a tweet or whatever. It's like because these are people that don't know you at all.
Yep.
I mean, at all.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
are making these like unbelievable sweeping judgments on who you are because I called a fastball going 102 miles an hour, like 1.5 inches off home plate.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's just crazy to me.
The real question is, was it on the outside corner? Because I believe we do have the data to show that we usually call that a strike anyway, So,
Well, the game has changed.
yeah, ain't that the truth?
But it's just, it's, I mean, and again, I acknowledge that over time, I've certainly, sucked myself down the rabbit hole of like,
We all do. Yeah.
and then finally one time I just like, you know what, this is crazy that
Yeah.
I'm doing this to myself because, like, it doesn't matter that these people don't know you when you like read bad things about you. It takes a little bite out of you.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
but like I'm not that person,
Right.
and that so it was hard for a while to get like to just kind of steel myself to stay away from it because like there's really nothing positive that's going to come of it.
Right.
The people that know me and whose opinions matter in my life are not going to that platform to communicate with me.
Right. Yeah, very true.
So if anybody's doing that, then they're really not anybody in my life whatsoever.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and the other part too is you look at the way that media has changed. So much of this stuff is opinionated when it really shouldn't be too.
Right.
Like it's one thing, not that this makes it okay. It's one thing to see it on, social media or something like that. It's another thing when it's an article and it's, and it's not labeled op-ed and whatnot. And you're just like, oh, this is just really infuriating,
Where we are now too, it's not like the story. It's not about what happened.
Right.
It's all about like whose take on what happened.
Right.
And then it becomes like the take on the take of what happened. And then the take on the take on the take on the take. And that's like, and you're just like, who cares?
Exactly. I literally could be doing anything else right now.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the people that are like supposed to deliver the news become the news because of a certain take. And it's like, this is the kind of legs this issue grows. And it's like, it's crazy.
It is. It totally is. So, man, you're driving me to drink just thinking about it right now. I was going to do
Dry
that
January,
anyway.
Jack. Dry January.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dry January. Okay.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
What is this, amateur hour? I believe you guys recently ratified a new CBA, did you
We
not?
did just officially last week.
That's fantastic to hear. So that's what, through 2029?
That is through the 29 season.
Okay. What is your I mean, talk about that and the state of the game in general, if you can, like, how happy are you with all this stuff? And,
Yeah.
is there anything about that the public should know? I mean, I think it's just, especially considering the state of, collective bargaining between, let's say, like the owners and players and people are
Yeah.
projecting about that, to know that, everything's good between, the league and umpires, I think is a good thing to
It
hear
is.
as well.
It is, and it's very good. I mean, getting this deal done, and as someone who I just wrapped up my 6th year on the governing board of our union, so I was part of the negotiations back in 19 for the contract that just ran out, and then I was part of these negotiations for the new contract.
Right.
And I can tell you that we enjoy a very healthy working relationship with the office, and the deal we reached is a very good deal for both sides.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, there's not going to be a lot in there that is going to jump out at anybody in the public other than, that when spring training games start, we're going to be there.
Yep.
And when the regular season starts, we're going to be there. And it's going to be business as usual. But it's a very, very fair deal. I think our outgoing president, Bill Miller, was masterful in his vision of developing a very functioning, cooperative working relationship with the office over the last 6 years when he was president. Proud to have worked with him. And I really think at the end of the day, I think that relationship bore out a lot of really good fruit for our group.
That's good.
Here at the end in this deal. It's a very good contract, and we had very good professional, productive bargaining sessions. Everybody walks away from the best deal kind of thinking, yeah, you got some here, you gave here.
That's the name of the game.
Line
really.
about like the best deal is usually the one everybody walks away a little bit like,
Yeah.
And I think probably, both sides can probably say that about things. So at the end of the day, it's done, 5 more years, and just feeling thankful again that was, whatever small part I played in it, was happy to be a part of that. And guys ratified it last week, and on we go.
That's great. I'm happy to hear that, because you think about the way the collective bargaining could go just in general at certain points, and you think, here we go again. It's almost like dealing with like all the attack ads in an election season sometimes. I'm just it's good to hear that you guys have that kind of labor piece and whatnot. As we kind of narrow the focus, I mean, with the year that you had. I wanted to give you a chance to kind of, brag about the crew that you had a little bit too, because I can only imagine the amount of work that they had to do with you, missing so much time and whatnot, and just talk about, how much, you appreciate them as well, how much they've grown and things like I look at the crew that you had. First of all, it must have been tough as hell for Brian O'Nora in the get-go, knowing that you're out and you were missing Pat Hoberg the entire year as well. So right off the bat, half the crew is rotating all the time. And now, then you get back in there and whatnot. I just wanted to see if you could talk about just how awesome they were. I mean, I'm sure that you probably saw Brennan Miller grow a ton during the season as well. So just wanted to give you a chance to kind of brag about them for a minute.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, because I'd love to brag on those guys, because I really feel super blessed to have had that crew. Brian's one of my best friends in the game. I knew day one when I was named a crew chief that I wanted him as my 2-man in the early going. Just first of all, a wealth of experience and know-how, but also a man that has like zero ego whatsoever, which, you would think on some level it might, like Brian O'Nora started working in the big leagues when I was a junior in high school.
Wow. Which is funny, because you're both like 16 years old?
So, for him to be, had the career he's had, and then, kind of have me be in the passenger seat or the driver's seat, and he's in the passenger seat. But really, he was my right-hand guy. Like it was invaluable to have him there. And, we were great friends before. We're better friends now.
That's great.
It was just, even going back to 23 when I was out, like he kept that crew going all year, had a great year, got a postseason assignment, had another great year last year, certainly ran the crew great for the month before I joined him. Unbelievable year. Brennan, future is as bright as he wants it to be.
Yeah.
Honestly, like that talented of an umpire, that good of a person. Love him dearly. I'm excited to kind of have be in the front row to watch him develop, which I've impressed upon him to continue to keep developing.
Yeah.
I think it's sometimes, the grind and the journey to get to the big leagues is so long that when you get there, you go, instead of thinking, okay, as hard as I work to get here, I have to work now even harder to keep getting better, because you do. Like even though you've been hired, you're still not a finished product.
Right.
So you have to continue to grow and learn and adapt as the game does and the job does. And Brennan, he's got an incredibly bright future. He's going to work a lot of games. He's going to work a lot of important games.
Good.
Over the course of his career. And then, the last spot, it was kind of it was a revolving door for
Right.
a while, series of cameo appearances.
Yep.
By a lot of different guys. And then we settled with Shane Livensbarger, who came back in July after some, he had to satisfy some military commitments.
Right, because he's in, I can't remember what branch he's in.
He is Air Force,
He's
I
Air
believe.
Force? Okay.
Air Force Guard. So he was tied up with that till I want to say late July. He joined us, and then he was just like the perfect missing kind of cog in the crew. And from there, we were finally whole at that point. And then it was smooth sailing the rest of the way. So same guy, great guy, oodles of talent.
Yeah.
Gonna be around a long time, and also just thankful because he, just talking to him, like that's a lot on his plate, balancing those commitments.
Oh
and
God,
he's got a young family, and then our job, and it was like, we finished the season, and like a week after, he was out in Arizona for a couple months doing some more, some work with that. So that's a big commitment, and certainly anybody does that is utmost respect.
I was surprised. It's him and was it Nick Marley are the ones who were they still active, or?
I don't know about Nick. I'm not saying he's not, but I just can't speak to it.
I think he had a military background. He could have been done by now, but I was impressed by the fact that more young guys are coming with that type of experience.
Yeah.
And the fact that, someone like this, someone like Shane can, after doing what he's doing and then hop on the field.
Yep.
I feel like that could be a huge benefit too. Cause, on one hand, you're defending the country, and then the other hand, all you're doing is calling balls and strikes, So you feel a little bit better about that.
Probably not. Probably seen a thing or two that maybe is a little more intense than, sometimes it's easy to think, a Major League Baseball game is the be all end all, and you're guys that maybe come from that background are like, this is not really a big moment for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not feeling very overwhelmed right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I can only imagine. Like when I was doing the research too, when I obviously remember Brennan from being unfortunately in the Savages in the Box moment with Aaron Boone and whatnot, and I'm just you compare that something like that to. Then when you hear about like Shane coming back from Air Force, service and whatnot, you're just like, that really, go ahead, touch my hat again, Aaron, because there are people here really, doing things that matter,
Yes.
So,
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So
all right. So a couple of hilarious questions I need to ask you. All right. On Sunday,
speed round, or is this like a first reaction kind of thing?
You can answer this however you want, okay? Including just saying I'm not touching that with a 60-foot pole, and you can keep increasing the size of the pole if you want to for hilarity. Okay. On Sunday, June 23rd, as I'm on a train to Boston to celebrate Valentine's Day late with my better half, I noticed that you have the plate for the Braves at the Yankees. The Braves are throwing now Yankee Max Fried, spelled like fried, and the Yankees are playing first baseman Ben Rice. Were you aware that you were working the fried rice game?
I was not.
Okay. You are now.
leave it to you to pick that one up, Jack, but I was not. In the moment, I'll admit to being completely oblivious.
I just want you to know that you were working the fried rice game.
All right. I'm going to have to. So, it's a shame because I could have just made some updates to my bio on the way, when I was out in Arizona. But had I known this before, I surely would have added
that in there. Yeah.
right after the 2021 World Series, that would have been like the next thing.
The fried rice game, And the only reason I picked that up, I'm scrolling through Instagram, and someone showed me the Braves feed of that, where they have the names of everyone. And first thing I'm looking at is, Chris is behind the plate. And then I look, I said, the joke is fried rice. Oh, okay. Well, I need to know this forever now.
All right. That's going to be a good one to remember.
make sure you use that at cocktail parties.
I will. I absolutely will. It's a good anecdote.
Yeah. When we honor you in another year for your dedication to sportsmanship, I want you talking about that game.
I will. Hands down. Absolutely.
On Friday, September 27th, you worked first base in an afternoon game where the Cubs were hosting the Reds. Both teams are out of playoff contention, yet the 9-inning game went 1 hour and 48 minutes. How many extra salads did you get to eat that night in Chicago because of that? Okay. I swear
we had very good game times that whole series.
Yeah, I'm sitting at the bar at the golf club because I usually play on Friday afternoons, and I'm sitting there at the turn just having a beer real quick, and I look and I'm like, That game's over already?
Oh my God, that was unbelievable. What was it? About hour 48, right? Wasn't
Hour
the
48, yeah.
that the fastest 9 inning game in history or something? Wasn't the?
If that turned out to be the truth, I would believe you.
I remember
That
the
was-
next day I had the plate. I think I went like 206 or 210.
And yeah.
Felt like forever.
I texted you and I was like, "That's pretty pathetic, buddy." In fact, I wrote here the next day you have the plate and your game goes 2 hours 13 minutes. What kind of pathetic amateur hour are you running here? You know?
Clearly, my pace of game skills need to hone up on them a little bit.
And then the next day, which is the last day of the season, you guys end up going into the 10th inning scoreless, and it lasts 3 hours. So
Yeah, naturally, why not?
exactly,
You know?
like what? Who did you piss off?
I don't know. It was that was a very odd. I remember that. Like really, we're gonna do this the last game of the season.
Oh my God.
Like, let's go. It's an hour to a hair. Let's go.
I literally was thinking, like, are you going to miss a flight? You know? I know I don't want you to go too deep into the weeds with this one, but I just want to ask the silly question on this one.
Yes.
When you're rehabbing in Lehigh Valley, you had a game where 2 of your crewmates mysteriously left in the middle of it.
Yes.
Was it something you said?
It was not something I said.
Okay. Did the salad that you have onions in it? Was that it?
It could have been that.
Okay. Because
maybe it could have been.
as I mentioned, I spent about 12 years in Easton at the other side of the Lehigh Valley, and there was a smell there that day. So I just wanted to know. Okay.
Yes.
On July 21st, you ran Bob Melvin before the game started.
I did.
Did he let you know where the dinner reservations were that he had to make?
That was not a conversation that involved dinner reservations.
Really?
Or some of the finer eateries in our fine city of Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
That was a little less for show.
Yeah, I saw that and I was just like, geez, Bob. And I was like, it's getaway day too.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yep.
I couldn't believe that.
Yep. First home plate ejection for me my entire career.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was the same series where you got hit down the first baseline, right?
I did. Yes, that was not a moment I'm proud of. It was just one of those things where it was just the worst, like coming together of different things. Like I think it was a lefty up, rocket down the line. It's, so I'm on first baseline and,
Right.
I'm moving towards fair territory.
Right.
Like we're taught to do.
Yep.
And, if the ball does what it does like 999 times out of the other 1,000, it just goes over the bag, misses me by probably 10 to 15 feet, and off we go.
Yeah.
Well, this ball I begin to move into fair territory. This thing hits the bag and then just like is coming right at me like just radar lock. Where I'm just like I only have one evasive maneuver in me. I don't have two.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Only one?
so I've already
What the
utilized the
hell?
first one by my moving into fair territory. So then, and plus it just was like, oh, this thing's coming right at me.
Right, yeah.
And all I could do was just kind of brace myself to not take it right in the teeth.
Yeah.
And well, it gets better from there. So now the ball shoots straight up in the air,
Right.
right to the first baseman, gloves it, and wins a foot race to the bag. And the guy has not only been robbed of an extra base hit and what would have been, I'm pretty sure, at least 2 RBIs.
Oh,
I think it
Jesus.
was like, I can't remember if it was his first and second or second and third. Doesn't matter. They both would have scored.
Right.
And now he's out. And that didn't set a great tone for the weekend.
I get it.
They were kind of running a little hot after that. They didn't understand the rule. Didn't understand why why that's allowed to stay in play. And despite explaining it to them that it passed the fielders, it's now just a live ball,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. They just didn't quite. And at some point, it's like, well, you're mad at the rule. I don't,
Right, yeah, I totally
you probably.
agree.
I mean, it's not like I didn't throw myself in front of it to get in the way.
Right.
I felt ridiculous.
I know,
Obviously,
and kudos to you for feeling bad about it, but at the same time, it's a ball coming at you. Like,
Right.
what else are you supposed to do other than your job there?
Yeah. I mean,
and
it's-
the rule is the rule. So if
Yeah.
you want to get mad at the rule, get mad at the rule.
Right.
Don't
Right.
don't take it out on me. I've got
Yeah.
a welt that I have to deal with now.
Totally. No, it
know?
was. I mean, yeah, it was awful though. If I could have dug a hole and crawled in it, I would have done it there.
I get it. I get
Everybody's
it.
just. It'd be one thing if it just squirted away into the outfield and they still. But I mean, like literally for it to hit me, deflect right to the first baseman, who in stride just snatches it and just runs to the bag. And now I'm like, I almost didn't even want to raise my hand and do this.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. And this is a joke that I've been writing for a while, so I'm actually kind of proud of it. On Tuesday, September 17th, there was a situation involving Jose Altuve where he took his shoe off.
Can't believe you're bringing this up.
Okay, which led to his ejection.
We're unrobing on the field.
What does Altuve's feet smell like? Because I would imagine it would be a combination of chicken piccata and silver dollars.
Well, all I know is if I were going to remove my sock like that, I'd probably have to like fall down on the ground and take and contort my body in such a way. Like he's just kind of like whoop off my sock. I'm like, it was like off before I even knew it. I'm like staring at it. I'm like, this guy really just took his sock off.
And that wasn't even your ejection. That was Brennan.
Correct.
You had to run Joe Spada later, and I'm looking at that, and I'm just like, I'm partly cracking up.
Yeah, that was another first. Last year was it was a year of some firsts.
I can only imagine the phone call to Jimmy Reynolds at that point. Like
Jimmy Reynolds was actually there.
Really?
He was there that weekend, seeing us in person, and it was I mean, that series had a little hair on it.
Yeah,
and that some things they didn't like, which is okay, that's the way it goes sometimes.
It's the name of the game,
that was I as I'm heading down there, and then I sort of like kind of assess. I'm like looking at him like, this guy has his sock off.
Yes.
Like, all right.
Yeah, you're not asking like, where'd you get the pedicure?
I mean, I guess we're a long way from like the batter that takes his glove off and says, "Hey, look, it hit me right here."
Right, exactly.
I mean, like it's like trying to show me your toe or whatever where the ball got it, and I'm like,
How much did you have to resist the opportunity to say, well, I'm no podiatrist, but I'll have a look?
Well, like I either cut it on that or dropped a Sergeant Hulka Stripes reference to the big toe, but
I can only imagine. Like, I know that those situations are what they are. This is maybe one of the reasons why I could never do the job. I would see a situation like that, and I'd have to resist like trying to make a crack like that.
Yes. As you get older and like things slow down a little bit, like sometimes those things just pop in.
Right.
There's always moments where you're like, you get back in the room and then the one-liner comes to you. It's like, God, why couldn't I have thought of that out there?
Exactly.
But, sometimes they hit you in the right moment where you're like, oh man, this is
make someone on the field laugh when you use that.
Absolutely. You gotta chuckle a little bit.
Oh my God. I had one this year where I was working a fall ball game, and in the middle of it, the theme from Night Court came into my head and stuck there for the rest of the game. And I'm walking off and I'm like, why am I singing the theme to Night Court?
Yes.
This entire time, so it happens. Okay. It absolutely happens. And why Night Court out of all the things?
Why Night Court? That's kind of random.
Yeah. I don't know why. So I mean, I
guess
not
like Sanford and Son, or
right. Another great tune.
All in the Family,
I guess that just explains why I had to make multiple appointments with my psychiatrist at that point. And just say, like, can you explain this one to me? And it's like the Far Side cartoon where they're just writing just plain nuts.
It's very healthy.
Yeah. All right. So to wrap this up, let's see if we can go back to your top 5 comedies with possible up to 3 honorable mentions. You think you can handle this?
I think I can handle it.
All right. Let me hear what you got.
Are these in particular order?
If you want.
All right.
It's not like I'm going to publish this and use it as a Bible anywhere or anything. So
okay. Trading Places.
Okay.
Stripes.
All right. That's good.
Caddyshack.
Okay. Which is another question I think I had to ask you this year. How the hell they got that on MLB Network?
Oh, I know. You did text me about that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, what kind of pull do you have?
I got some juice over the network,
Hello, Mr. Torrey, Mr. Manfred. Could you do me a solid?
Blazing Saddles.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to go Airplane.
Okay. That's a good one.
Then maybe I've got a few just outside.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go Monty Python's Holy Grail.
Okay.
Any one of the vacation movies, preferably the original. European Vacation is nah, But the first one and Christmas Vacation, pretty solid.
I feel like you have to go with the original if you're going to put that on a list like this.
Yep. And then last one in there, I'm going a little old school Chevy Chase, Fletch.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah,
you got a fair amount of Chevy Chase in this.
Yeah,
you know,
enjoyed him, Bill Murray, those. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Dan, absolutely.
Murphy, like, I mean, you can go on and on.
I feel like you did. Like, I'm looking at the original 5, and I'm thinking, okay, I see a little bit of crossover, but then I also see a lot of diversity. Like, Airplane and Blazing Saddles are 2 completely separate from, Caddyshack and Stripes.
Sure.
So I feel like there's a lot of good thought.
And most wouldn't be able to be made today.
Absolutely not. Which is another reason. I guess that leads me to my next question. If you went up to Brennan Miller and just went, would he have any idea what you're doing?
Brennan is so very young that he was very open-minded to take on some of the movie requests that me and Brian O'Nora threw at him.
Oh, good.
To round him out. There were some moments where I was horrified that I would bring something up and he would just look at me with just a blank expression that I can't believe you have not even heard of this.
Yeah.
So we as the season wore on, we got him into a few good ones on flights and things like that. So see if I can keep on him this year.
I'm so glad that you have the ability to mold your crew that way.
Well, I feel like that's part of my job as a chief, Jack.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's not just ball strike, safe out. It's I need you to understand this Billy Madison reference. Okay, that's exactly right. I mean, it's just, hey,
I get it. Speaking of, do you know who's on your crew this year?
I do, as a matter of fact. It is so John Tumpane is my 2-man.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love John.
Jeremy Rayhack.
Okay, another good one.
Brennan's
Miller back. That's fantastic.
So I'm sad. I'm sad to see Brian go, but I get it. But I certainly I'm really excited. This is a good crew. Very good.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a pretty solid bunch.
I feel now I feel
I'm the weak link by a mile on this crew.
Yeah, I guess so. Sorry,
Try not to drag you guys down. I swear.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you. I constantly go back to what John did in Pittsburgh X number of years ago when he saved that person's life.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how he went out and worked that game that night.
Yeah. He had the plate that night too, right?
Plate that night. Yeah. I just saved this woman from going over a bridge, and here I am just here I am calling balls and strikes.
Yeah. Gosh. No, I've been so impressed by him, and if you can do one thing for me at some point, I may need to interview him on the podcast for this kind of stuff. If you could put in a word,
put in a word for you.
Tell Jeremy and Brennan to go do something else. I couldn't care less about them right now. Okay, yes.
You don't want to at some point you don't just want to do a Crew Conroy podcast.
I would love to do that. Of course, I don't know if we could publish it.
Type of discussion.
Here's the problem with that. You and I would be making the movie references all this time, and I'm sure that all those other guys would be looking at us like, what the hell is wrong with them?
You know who else is really good with that is Bellino, Dan Bellino.
Really?
So he was on he's on the board. He's now the president of the union.
Okay.
But he was the VP. So during bargaining this year, I was always, and he and I are we're always with the movie quotes. And,
okay.
Know exactly what the other one's coming with.
Oh, that's great.
They mean and all that. And there's so many times he'd say something, I'd say something, and we're the only 2 people in stitches laughing, and everybody else is looking at it Will Little's looking at us the hell are you guys talking about? We're never mind.
Will has the ability to look at you like that. Will walked past me once in 2020 spring training, and I was deathly scared of the look he gave me, and I was oh no, so it doesn't surprise me that.
Yeah, he'd just be like, and then after a while they just he and I Bellino and I doing our thing, and they're all just looking at each other what are these what are these guys do?
How did you guys get hired again?
Yeah, don't mind us. Just let us do our thing here.
And did I hear is Bellino also a practicing attorney, or how does JD?
Oh, yes.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. I heard that from the cats over at Close Call Sports, and it's holy hell! I mean, you guys are the real deal.
Practicing attorney, union president, major league crew chief.
You guys are going to be fine for a while with him at the
father of 4.
Only 4? Come on, Dan.
Yeah.
Come on.
A lot on his plate, but he'll be a good one for us.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I fully expect you to also keep tabs on John's hair length as the
Well,
goes on.
It's yeah. I mean, he's got big league hair. I mean, there's no doubt.
And we talked about this before between him and Phil Cuzzi. You know, like
Yeah, he's on the short list. You got him, Cuzzy, Rippiger. Like those guys are, Vanover when he, the Silver Fox.
Oh God, yeah. You put him next to Chase Utley, I can't tell them apart. You know.
But yeah, Tump is firmly entrenched in the best hair in the big leagues conversation. There's no doubt.
Best hair. He's got noticeable mechanics, and he's the Ripper. You know, I would not want him to walk behind me in a dark alley. It's that simple. You know, I don't know if you're going to kill me or call me out of the baseline. What do you think?
I'm excited to have a front row seat for it. All I mean, just
great.
Yep.
Chris, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me on the show here and for all the laughs and whatnot. It's always a pleasure every year, and really look forward to watching you this season. Give my best to everybody that who I may or may not know. I probably don't know them, but I tell them I'm fans, and and that you keep my book on your nightstand. So I think that's a great way to brag and whatnot. But look forward to an absolutely awesome season. I hate the fact that you're always on the other coast of Florida when I go down, but it's going to be what it's going to be. So. Yeah. If I see Honora, I'll just tell him you still have the plate, Brian.
That's exactly it. But I appreciate you having me, Jack. I love doing this. I look forward to it every year. So
you and me both.
It's an easy conversation. I enjoy it very much. Thank you.
And I always laugh if you texted me on Thanksgiving to say Happy Thanksgiving, and I'm always like 1 or 2 bottles of wine in at that point, and I'm like, oh my God, one of my heroes just texted me. What do I do? And my better half is looking at me like, why are you the way that you are? Like,
give me a third.
Exactly. Yeah. Do we still have wine, or have we moved on to the harder stuff at this point? It's like, no, I'm opening another red. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. All right.
Awesome.
All right. Well, again, thanks, man. And
thank you.
You always know that there's an open spot at the bar next to me to ever get the rounds are on OSIP really at that point.
You still do the trivia night? Is that still
actually next week is for Umps Care if you're around, and if not, spend time with the family. It'll be Tuesday night, and all
right.
Yeah. So
jump on that a little bit over the next
so if
days,
you want, if not, I totally recognize how much time you need to spend with the family and whatnot, but you just keep me posted. And
I will. That's good to know. Thank you.
But we'll go from there, and we'll chat along the way. But everyone, thanks for joining us, and we will talk to everyone in just a couple of short weeks. And until then, treat each other with respect. How You Play the Game is a production of the OSIP Foundation, Incorporated. The producer-engineer of this episode is Sean Ryan. Music by Soundspring Studio. The executive producer of How You Play the Game is Jack Furlong. For more information, visit osipfoundation.org.